Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemer's Bible. I'm here to join today by my usual crew, in addition to my false water cobra, Abath. And we're gonna pick up the pace a bit so that we don't have to spend so many years reading this. Anybody have any opening announcements, or should we dive into reading?
Honestly, the years just fly by. You'll be fine.
You'll never feel an instance.
No, I'm just kidding. It's grueling.
It is. That's why we have to keep up the jokes.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying this at the moment.
Yeah, that'll stop. Once we get to First Chronicles, it'll stop. I promise.
Oh, you think it'll take that long?
Yeah, actually, that's what...
You don't think he'll get a little tired mid-Deuteronomy?
No, it'll be First Chronicles.
Okay.
All right, looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's the end. It's at the end.
Not for
us.
This canon.
All right, so anybody want to start off? Who wants to read?
Well, I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
It's a good welcome back.
So, yeah, that's good to be back. So Genesis 42, yes?
Yeah, I suggest you do 5 verses each.
All right.
Or even 10. Whatever you want.
We'll see where the breaks naturally fall in the story. But I'll try and keep it around that.
That was a very polite way of saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, damn it.
Oh, I have experience. Now, when Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at each other?" He continued, "I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us so that we may live and not die." Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others because he was afraid that harm might come to him. So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for the famine was in the land of Canaan also. Yeah, I'd just like to note there's a quick change here between calling him Jacob and calling him Israel.
Yeah, it's his second name.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's possibly another instance of shuffling things together. So that's 5 verses. Do you want me to stop there?
Yeah, I should jump in with a couple of chat messages right after Tomer does his bit.
So, okay, first on verse 1, why do you just keep looking at each other? So according to the Talmud, Ta'anit 10b, Jacob asks them, why do you show yourselves, i.e. pretend, before the children of Ishmael and the children of Esau as though you have plenty to eat? Rashi comments that he asked them, why should everyone gaze at you and wonder at you? Because you do not search for food before what you have in your possession comes at an end. And Ibn Ezra adds that he ordered them to not quarrel with each other. And about he was afraid that harm might come to him in verse 4. Rashi comments, quoting from Bereshit Rabbah 91:2, quote, and at home could not mischief befall him? Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Jacob, said, we may infer from this that Satan accuses a man at the time of danger. David Kimchi, however, writes that mishaps which befall people on a journey are far more frequent than those that befall a person while he is at home.
Well,
I want to ask you about...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you please.
Well, no, I was just thinking, first of all, why do you stand here looking at each other? It just sounds like a father being, quit standing around staring like a bunch of dumbasses and do something. But yeah, the thing with Benjamin is the last time he sent his young son out with these boys, he didn't come home. So I wouldn't really trust them either.
Yeah, I'm curious about the Jewish interpretation of Satan. You did say Satan a moment ago, right?
Yes.
Okay, now is this the first time? This is the first time that Satan is mentioned by name, correct?
No.
This is only the commentary, though.
Yeah,
that's the commentary.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm curious about the Jewish interpretation of that character, because my understanding is he's not mentioned until Job, and the Jewish interpretation is a very different than the Christian devil.
It is mentioned before. I think in I forget in what order.
It's the snake in Genesis.
So there is a I think it's the Second Chronicles version, or is it the King's version? So they actually differ for why David took a census. One, yeah, when because he wasn't supposed to take a census, but he did anyways, and they differ in each version for the reason he took that census. In one of them, I forget if it's in Kings or in Chronicles, but in one of them, Satan actually shows up there to kind of push him
Yeah,
into
the
doing this.
devil tempted him to.
There is in Zechariah also chapter 3 verses 1 and 2, and in First Chronicles chapter 21 verse 1.
So it does seem to be Satan's job to tempt, or they blame anything bad they've done or anything that they end up condemned for on Satan must have tempted me to do the thing. And that must be why God is mad, because it was his idea and Satan is bad or whatever. I don't know.
So, I mean,
the interpretation for the word Shaitan was like accuser, right? So
yes.
in the Old Testament, he's like a lawyer or something who's like, hey God, look what they're doing, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the prosecutor.
Prosecutor.
Yes,
yeah.
he was
He
he was
seems
an
to
angel
have a legitimate
but
job.
whose job was to, accuse the soul of, or to, if you had like when you died, you'd have a case, so he would be the prosecution.
Mhm.
But I think by the time Rashi comes along, which would have been about 800 years ago, like 1100s,
Mm.
or something like that.
Yeah, around
I
that
think
time,
it
11th
was more or
century.
less the same as the modern belief, which was that, I think he was already kind of connected with the idea of the Yetzer Hara, which
The
is like
wayward
the
inclination?
evil inclination.
Mm.
And so not only was he like accusing you after the fact, or whatever, he would also be the one who kind of influenced you to do bad things, or maybe in this case, it's more like something bad that you had done before. He would bring attention to it when you were in a dangerous situation.
So
He would
would you
bring
say
ill
that that's-
omen. Sorry, go ahead.
Like he would remind God that this guy deserves to be punished, and now he's in a dangerous position. So don't put yourself in a dangerous position, because the accuser will punish you for your
will
previous
accuse you.
doings.
So what I'm wondering is that still like the modern interpretation of Satan? Because in ancient Israel,
Yeah.
we covered it would have been different.
Very much the modern interpretation is the Satan and the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is kind of the same. It's like personified. Like
Gotcha.
each person kind of has their own evil inclination, but there's also like the Satan version as well, kind of.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Okay. Cool. So is
Aaron, I think you're muted.
So
Or-
I am. My dogs
Yes.
went off a moment ago, and I
Oh.
forgot to unmute. All right, so a couple of chats to read. And first off, Master Philbo says, "Nice to see the lovely Lilith back. Hello, everyone
Aw.
else."
Thank you.
Then Raghu says, I guess that's Raghu, says, "Hello, sir. Love your work. Just curious if you've ever heard a good argument for theism. I never did. I honestly never heard a good one either. Just seriously. I mean, frauds, fallacies, and falsehoods, and that's it."
You know, it's really weird because there's one argument that it's really a personal thing, not for me personally, but like for each person. There is the whole argument where this is what some theists have told me, that the only reason that they're not like off being horrible people is because they believe in God and they think they're gonna be punished. And for me, I'm very split on that one. On one end, I want them, if that's the thing that's keeping them from being murderers or something, I want them to believe it. But on the other hand, it's also just really scary that that's the thing that's like do I want them to be consistent with facts and reality, or do I want them to be not horrible people? Like it's very
Religion never kept anyone from being a horrible person, but it's yeah, that
I think
at some
I hear it
point
a lot though. I hear it a lot.
I hear it too, but honestly, that isn't necessarily the person reflecting on themselves and their own internal morality. That's based on the guilt and shame that comes with Christian doctrine, where they say, you're a horrible, sinful, evil person. All your righteousness is as filthy rags. The minute, if it wasn't for God, there's no good in you except as a gift of Him. And if you take that in your entire life, you will come to believe that you genuinely would do horrible things without God, even if you don't really want to do horrible things. But you've been told you're this dirty, filthy, disgusting sinner for so long, and that the only thing keeping you from atrocities is God, and you take it in, and then you start to justify your own oppression by degrading yourself.
See, for Christians, definitely, I would say that that's the case.
Mhm.
But for other faiths, I get that too.
Oh.
Get it for I've actually gotten that mostly from Jews and Muslims than I've got it from Christians. Interestingly, I mean, yeah, the crazy Christians, yeah, you hear them say a lot of stuff. But I
Yeah.
mean, like in my personal life, like my friends that I've talked to, they're primarily the ones, and then other faiths as well.
I don't know enough about, obviously, I'm assuming this is more Orthodox Judaism than I don't know, but I don't know enough about Jewish and Muslim doctrine to say how much that's similar, but I would not be surprised if it was similar in certain sects of those faiths.
In my experience with growing up as a fundamentalist Christian, if anybody ever talks their faith and how it changed their life, they used to be a criminal. Sometimes that's a quick way to regain other people's trust. Trump does that. He's a Christian, and everything he does, now, and like that pastor that got caught doing something. Bless me, I have sinned, and then they repent and people forgive them, and then they sin again, But there are people, I think, that are genuinely good people that are Christians, and there are people who transgressed in the past that are genuinely remorseful. But people that talk up their religion a lot tend to make me suspicious when they say that makes them a better person.
That's fair.
So the next comment to read is John 73. John says, a broken clock is right twice a day. A working clock that was set wrong will never be right until someone changes it. Ignorance is better than clinging to lies. Thank you for all that you do. I hadn't heard that analogy before. I like it.
That's a good one.
And then Saleman offers $5 and says, hey, Aaron, I want to wear a Mjolnir, but I'm still an atheist. Is it disrespectful to those who actually believe in those gods? Well, I'm wearing a Mjolnir right now. It's just hidden under my shirt because I don't want my snake to get wrapped up in it. And I consider it more an homage to heritage than anything else, if that makes any sense. Anyway, if I was going to have a religion, and if I could do as the believers do and just believe whatever I want to, then I might have chosen that. But of course, I can't believe whatever I want to. Then Saleman, no, we read that one.
Yeah, actually, hold on that last question. When you were in Milwaukee, you met Dawn, right? And she is she is of the Norse religion.
Is it true?
I mean, wait, what'd you say?
Is it true?
I guess that's what you call it. I don't know. She always just says she's a Norse pagan.
Okay.
So she, I don't know how she would feel about that one, but she has gotten mad about the appropriation of Thor, for example, in the Marvel. Right? Yeah. So she's got mad about that. So I'm not sure how dominant that feeling is.
In my albeit limited experience with pagans, they have in general treated their gods more like grown-ups. So they've been more like, if Odin wants to talk to you, he'll talk to you. I don't need to do that. You do your own thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a neo-pagan for a long time. I used to wear a pentacle with a double quartz tourmaline Mjolnir that I hand fashioned myself with silver wire.
Nice.
And I made what I thought was a quite nice little hammer for being handmade. And I had crystals hanging off it, the whole hippie thing. And this was before I realized that there was no supernatural at all. I already wasn't an atheist, but I still thought that there were supernatural things.
Mhm.
I'm wearing an ankh, and I would say there are really no sacred objects. So I don't feel disrespectful to people who follow the religion. I don't know, like offense is what given, not taken.
If anybody complains, just
taken
tell her
by
just tell him your husband is Ra.
Yeah.
That'll work.
So then Frederick Agarbo says her Lilithness is back. My sacrifice to atheismus was heard.
Praise Atheismus.
All hail Lilith, the queen of blasphemers. Bible. But don't get me wrong, Lalandra, you are also a queen. And
Damn
then,
straight.
Sweet.
She's more justly the queen. She's married to the king of Blasphemer's Bible.
To the sun god Ra.
Yes.
The
Hector
rest
White
of us-
Lion offers 50 Czech kroner and says, this money is for the
Interesting.
Phylogeny Explorer project. How is it coming along? Can't wait for a public release. Also, did your snake ever offer you fruit? Yeah, so Isaac and I are going to work on a like an update of sorts. We just haven't worked out what the details are going to be for that. All right, shall we continue reading?
Yes, we shall. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to put him up
Jonathan.
because he's
Arn,
getting
I-
migratory.
I got a sneak peek a few days ago when talking to Isaac.
Mhm.
Chat? Oh, okay.
Yes,
Wonderful.
I did.
Now, okay. Well, we'll let the snake go to bed, and we'll continue reading.
I
Now,
think there is a little bit of just quickly. There is a little bit of like not really commentary, but like there is like a midrash story that kind of goes alongside with this, which I think Rashi brings up. But there are there's a few boring stuff, but there's a couple of little things that maybe here and there might be interesting. So like one of the things over here is it says, or we just said before was, and Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain rather than the sons of Jacob. And so the story is trying to say at this point they felt bad about selling him, and they kind of went down with the hope that they might find him enslaved there and rescue him or something like that.
Oh.
So this is a later
Well, that's a
story
nice
trying
thought.
to a later story trying to kind of
Partly
read
redeem
into
them.
the story a bit more, make the
Bit of
characters
a-
a bit more relatable, I guess.
Likable. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Well, here's for their redemption arc. So let's see. Now Joseph was governor of the land, and the one who sold the grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them. But he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Where do you come from? He asked. From the land of Canaan, they replied, to buy food. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, You are spies. You have come to see where our land is protected. No, my lord, they answered. Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies. No, he said to them. You have come to see where our land is unprotected. But they replied, Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more. Joseph said to them, It is just as I told you, you are spies. And this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest may be kept in prison, so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If they are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies. And he put them all in custody for 3 days.
Well, you know what?
so-
Generally, they deserve that.
They did.
So, anybody had commentary?
My one would just be on. I think Lilith, your translation used "protected," like the land.
Yeah.
Unprotected. That was
Yeah.
that was a misspeaking on my part. I just carried on because it repeated unprotected.
No,
Yeah.
that's.
I
that's
had one
totally
for this
fine.
as well.
Yeah, but
I was wondering,
from the
was so
Masoretic-
both verses in your translation, Lilith, both places said
Yeah.
unprotected?
Yes, they did.
The NIV.
Oh,
yes.
okay, I was confused.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's
But there's
sorry, you go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna finish my one thing. It's probably the same as yours, honestly. So the Masoret text has the land's nakedness, which would just be an
Yes.
idiom to mean the same thing. Is that-
Mhm.
I have a comment on this, but if you want to continue.
No, that was my whole thing. How it's just an
Okay,
idiom.
so-
That's been,
Yeah, now I'm just imagining the land wrapping the Nile around itself. No, don't look.
Okay, so first on verse 8, they did not recognize him. So most commentators wrote, based on Chazal in Talmud Ktuvot 27b, that Joseph had grown a beard, so they did not see his face. Chizkuni adds that his name was changed and he spoke Egyptian, so it contributed to
Well,
this.
and he would have been, I mean, I honestly doubt he had a beard. It doesn't seem to have been that popular in Egypt, but he would have been dressed up. He would have had the, the eyeliner, the kohl, the, whatever headdress for his office or whatever. They were not expecting to find Joseph there. And this is one of the moments, because a lot of Genesis, the stories have been very bare and not like there is a narrative there, but it's not exactly well written. And this is where you get a story where there's actually a bit of an emotionally satisfying moment. The brothers screwed him over and he gets to mess with them and, just, yeah, absolutely. Get
And
in there.
he was also, when they last saw him, in the story, he was a boy.
Yeah.
So
he
he's
was
grown
young.
some too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Lilith, about, in those, the Egyptians probably wouldn't have had beards and stuff like that. But, from the religious perspective, like Joseph was a holy person. Of course he had a beard.
Oh,
Of course
right,
he
of
had
course.
sideburns and wore a fur hat,
Yeah, of course. It's not like
if
he
you
would
go
have-
to if you go to some Hasidic schools or the children's material for schools, it's very anachronistic. Is that the word?
Well, I got the impression that
Anachronistic.
Joseph was still a child when he was,
Yeah.
dumped
Yeah, so
by
the
the rest
classic
of the
commentary
family.
I mean,
says that he
young
didn't
man,
have a beard when they
His
left,
voice
and
would
now
have
he had a
changed
beard.
at the very least.
at the very
Yeah,
least.
that's for sure.
Also,
And so
as you were saying, this is kind of a satisfying plot movement and stuff.
Totally.
But Joseph in a lot of this story seems like one of the more blameless patriarchs. The other ones, one tried to sacrifice their child. They're very hard. They're not very sympathetic characters. And but in this part, I don't know if we let him off the hook for messing with them and throwing him in prison. I mean, maybe in his defense, he was trying to see how remorseful they were or whether they've changed before he said, "Hey, it's me, Joseph, your brother."
Well, yeah, and given everything, I think he wanted to test their character, but also they threw him in a cistern that was probably full of scorpions and then sold him into slavery with strangers. So I could see, he totally could have, presuming his position in the court and everything, he totally could have just had them all beheaded if he wanted. He just messed with them, and I think that's
Yeah,
fair.
he put them, and also the word it uses isn't like prison. It kind of says the ward, which could
Yeah.
mean the just a part of the palace that was they weren't
Yeah, they
allowed
were
to leave, but they were
Um,
treated as guests.
in
yeah,
custody, but they weren't
JPS
chained to a wall.
JPS
and beaten.
translates. Sorry, Lilith. JPS translates it as guardhouse. Yeah. So about our land is unprotected. Literally reads the land's nakedness, as Lawrence said. The nakedness in Hebrew, ervat, which could mean either nakedness or the pubic area, the pudenta. So Rashi comments. Yeah. So Rashi comments that it refers to the areas that are the easiest to conquer. Ibn Ezra writes that this refers to the secrets of the land. And Sfono writes that Joseph accused them that they have come to see if the Egyptians had enough food.
In a famine, the last one would make more sense, but
Benny Olson comments for 50 Danish kroner, says, "Have fun, love you all, unlike most gods."
aw.
Toma, you did all the verses already?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're on verse 18.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is a bit from the story bit. What is it I saw? There is the bit where they say we are all sons of one man,
Mhm.
and what I think Rashi mentions it, that he had a flicker of divine revelation, and he said, "We are all the sons of one man," including the person he was talking to, even though he didn't know. Which
so he accidentally told more truth than he intended, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's just one of these little weird things. There was
see
one
how
other
that
thing,
would
which was
work.
like, because they went to different gates, he accused them again of spying. And there's also what in the story. There's the whole thing. I remember learning this in school as well, that Joseph pretended he had like a cup, a goblet, and he pretended to
that
them
comes
that he
next. Yeah.
Yeah, that comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
it's
so it's
important to
part of
note
the
here.
actual
I mean,
story.
we'll get to in a second, but it's important to note here that he's speaking through an interpreter.
And later on.
Yeah, that comes up later. Yeah. Okay.
Verse 18. We're right now.
Yes, verse 18. On the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back to your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified and that you may not die." This they proceeded to do. And they said to one another, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come upon us." Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood." They did not realize that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep. Then he turned back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes. Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to put each man's silver back in his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. After this was done for them, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left.
So first about the interpreter. In Hebrew, it's melitz. And the word could also refer to an ambassador, like in 2 Chronicles 32:31, or an intermediary between God and man, like in Isaiah 43:27. According to Targum Jonathan and Bereshit Rabbah 91:8, the interpreter was Manasseh, the son of Joseph. Yeah, and he had Simeon taken in verse 24. Rashi comments that Simeon was the one who threw Joseph to the pit and was the one who said, "Here comes that dreamer." Rashbam comments that Joseph separated Simeon from Levi so that they won't conspire to cause major damage as they have done in Shechem.
Yeah,
Simeon
which is
and
one of the
Levi
things
were
that the
Hell brother pair. No, I was just saying, agreeing. Simeon and Levi were the Hell brother pair. Just putting them together, it was, it's Fred and George, but more genocidal.
I remember, that he looked at his cup and he was like, "Oh, didn't you guys kill the whole Shechem? And you are spies."
Got another comment from the Sun Express for $10. Says, "Lifelong atheist here. These series have been the most entertaining and definitely educational. Not a slight on academia that I've ever come across. Thank you all." I very much appreciate that.
Sweet.
I think this is the best way to do Bible study.
I agree.
Matt White says, "Tomer, the Nile Delta was Egypt's wedgie, Latin Cuneus wedge."
Why are you asking me this?
Because you're closer.
I mean,
you are closer.
Yeah, technically, but just because I'm closer doesn't mean that You mean like the shape of the delta? I mean, everybody can see the shape of the delta.
Yeah, you were the one that brought up the nakedness and the private hairs and
maybe because of that.
Pudenta.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, maybe there's a little sexual frustration leaching into those commentaries. Maybe the Delta gave them ideas.
Latin Cuneus wedge / C word.
Does the C word come from the Latin, which means wedge?
I'm guessing that's what he says, but I have no idea myself. So Constellation Pegasus offers $9.99 and says the Shadim and angels are two different species according to Judaism. Interesting how these non-related species Christianity made the same to make fallen angels into demons. Religion
Yeah.
morphs everything.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like,
definitely happens.
I mean, Islam
Christianity-
has like genie, which are more or less the same thing as shadim, but like, I don't really get. In Christianity, you've got fallen angels and demons. Are they the same, or are they actually like?
Well, look at the
they're
example
the
you just
same.
gave. In Islam, Satan / Iblis is both a jinn and an angel, right?
But the angels are made of light and the jinn of fire.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Well, I
somehow
mean-
he's both.
Well, angels. Let's point this out. So once we get to something like I think it's most prevalent in 30 Knock.
Or air.
But once you get to some point in time, angels who are made of light are turned into being made of fire, and it's
Hmm.
not thought to
Different
contradict.
seraphim?
So, no, all angels, in at least in 30 Enoch, and in a few other texts too, but not so much, are described as being made of fire. Like they have eyes
Okay.
of flames and wings of embers, and like they use different words for fire, but like it's they are completely made of fire. They are the size of planets. They have like 1,000 eyes.
I think I've seen that anime.
Yeah, right. You're not wrong.
I love the cartoons of biblically accurate angels. They're all like eyes and spinning and
Planet
six
sized.
wings.
Yeah,
Okay,
and you
so
get
then-
that
Yeah,
there, so-
Shadim are like the Jewish boogeymen. Like there's so many weird stories. Like they're said to have chicken feet, and like Hitler, you never saw him without his boots on, because if you had taken his
There-
boots off, you'd see he was a shade.
Yeah,
And they
there
don't
are,
even
there are
say shade; they say Shein Dullard, because they don't want to say they don't want to say the names, so they spell it out.
yeah, there are like instances of demons in the Bible. I've read in Isaiah there is the Seir, I think, and there's also the Ketev Meriri, but I haven't gone too far on that.
There's also,
I'm
of
sure
course,
it's a later.
the mention of Lilith in Isaiah. That
Yeah, but isn't that just a
demon,
night owl?
that's how it's translated. But that's one way to translate it. There's a few ways
okay.
that they've done it. They've translated as night owl, night hag, and other ways as well. It's been translated, but the word Lilith. I mean, I go into
Or the
this
club.
in the video, but yeah, there was Lilith were an ancient class of demons. They
That makes sense. Yeah.
and the thing is, you could have both female and male Lilith.
Yep.
So it wasn't. But yeah, you have like those references as well to.
I only
demons.
appear as a hag to conservative men.
My favorite like superstition, like to do with demons, is like the reason why you feel when you're walking, the reason why you feel resistance to movement is because you're completely surrounded by demons, invisible demons, and you're pushing against them as you move.
So
And that's where
gravity
Gravity
and
comes
inertia
from.
aren't real. You just
Yeah.
have little evil demon babies hanging from your arms.
Yeah.
something like that, yeah. I think it's a
But
very
there-
medieval
there-
idea, but I always found that one really
There's
interesting.
the demons of the fallen angels in the Old Testament too, right?
Well, you don't really get much. You don't really get any fallen angel stuff, I don't think, in the Old Testament. You get it in.
I mean, there is the
No.
word Nephilim, which you could translate as fallen and is understood by Christians as being fallen angels. But I think the traditional Jewish understanding of Nephilim is just mighty men, giants, and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There,
Well, the
there's-
Nephilim give birth to giants, definitely.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's of course more expanded in First Enoch.
yeah.
But yeah, the Jewish version of
Chicago's going off.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not. It's
so-
not important to Jewish
Yeah, my-
theology at
my-
all. It's just
My Dorgie,
Yeah.
my Dachshund Corgi mix, was growling at the front door in a weird way, and I realized that I seemed to be missing a polar bear. And I
So
thought
the
I had
polar
put him
bear
in the
is back.
backyard, and then I realized no, Captain Escape Artist has found a way out, and he was in the front yard.
Hmm.
some.
well, he's very
He was still on the
slippery.
property. I'm amazed.
That's amazing. He's very slippery for someone of that size.
Yeah.
Lucky dragon.
Indeed.
All right. So April Van Ryn offers $2 Canadian, says, "Hail Sagan, and shout out to my fave referee."
See, this is a reference to.
Yeah,
Yeah, someone knows.
yeah, it's the Milwaukee Atheist stream.
Yeah, we were so Ruben and I wanted to set up this pro wrestling match, right? We were trying to decide who's going to be the face and who's going to be the heel, and then Chris was like, "Let's throw in the referee as a joke." We did a poll, and they wanted me to be a referee. This is a lesson in not having joke candidates.
Lawrence, I just want to say, I voted you as referee.
Oh wow! See, this is what I'm talking about. The people do not want to see me as a heel or a face, which is I want it to be a heel so bad. I want to go into that match as the bad guy, and then just it's fine. I'll go through a table. I don't care. Like it sounds like a good time, but no. Now I gotta count to 3 and count people out and shit.
I'm sure you could like trip people a little. I mean,
I'll be a heel referee. It's okay. I'll like
exactly.
do a slow count or something. It's all good.
Just mess with them a bit. I'm sure you'll have fun. So, shall we get back to the text?
Kicker White Lion 450 Czech Kroner says in Hoven's voice, "The Shittim and angels don't care if we classify them as different species. They are still the same kind, Mr. Nelson."
Oh God!
You forgot the okay at the end.
Yep, just a joke.
Yep.
Yeah, and I need to add one other thing.
Yeah, I can't stomach condescending narcissist for long enough to watch anything of Hoven's through. Anyway,
what's weird about Hoven? Like the thing is, like even though I knew from the first time I ever saw any of his videos, the first I would watch them and be like, yeah, this is stupid. But I also thought he was funny. Like genuinely, I thought that like his sense of humor was, for the most part amusing. Like I know I'm in the minority on that one. I know I am.
You really are.
But it's not self-aware.
Well, he's just flippant. He speaks condescendingly about things in an exaggerated way that he can pretend he was exaggerating, being sarcastic. But then to people who are totally ignorant and imbibing his ignorant idea of what evolution is, that his snide remarks become what they actually think evolution is, and that only serves his grift more. So,
yeah, that is true.
I just feel like I need a shower now. Anyway. Back to Egypt.
Verse 27.
Indeed. Pardon me. At the palace where they stopped for the night.
Palace. Wait,
at the place.
27.
Sorry. After they left the palace. Now, at the place where they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw his silver in the mouth of his sack. "My silver has been returned," he said to his brothers. "Here it is in my sack." Their hearts sank, and they turned to each other trembling and said, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. They said, "The man who is lord over the land spoke harshly to us and treated us as though we were spying on the land. But we said to him, 'We are honest men, we are not spies. We were 12 brothers, sons of one father. One is no more, the youngest is now with our father in Canaan.' The man who is lord over the land said to us, 'This is how I will know whether you are honest man. Leave one of your brothers here with me and take food for your starving households and go. But bring your youngest brother to me so that I will know that you are not spies, but honest men. Then I will give your brother back to you and you can trade in the land.' As they were emptying their sacks, there in each man's sack was his pouch of silver. When they and their father saw the money pouches, they were frightened. Their father Jacob said to them, 'You have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you want to take Benjamin? Everything is against me.' Then Reuben said to his father, 'You may put both of my sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Entrust him to my care, and I will bring him back.' But Jacob said, 'My son will not go down there with you. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm comes to him on the journey you are taking, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow.
Okay, so
Simeon's gone. Forget about Simeon. No, you can't have Benjamin.
So verse 27, about one of them opened his sack. So according to Talcum Jonathan, or pseudo Jonathan, whatever you like to call it, Levi was the one who opened the sack. Ibn Ezra writes that it could have been Reuben since he was the firstborn, i.e., the one of them was the one. And 34, you can trade in the land. JPS translates it as you shall be free to move about in the land. Rashi explains this. All such words as merchant, socharim, and merchandise, schora, are derived from the root sachar, samech chet resh, to go round, because the merchants travel round looking for merchandise.
I have to say, yeah, the part of this that jumps out to me, because most of it is just they find the silver in the sacks, they tell their father what happened. The father freaks out because Rachel was the only woman he ever loved. He's already lost one of her sons, and the last one left is Benjamin. But Reuben offers his own sons in surety, essentially as a guarantee that he will bring Benjamin back. But the way he phrases it is, you can put my 2 sons to death if I don't bring Benjamin back. In other words, if something happens to your son, you get to kill 2 of your grandsons. What the fuck?
Well, Ibn Ezra comments on this. He writes, some say that thou shalt slay means thou shalt punish. Others say that this was a prayer to God. The sum of the matter is this. If Reuben would have spoken correctly, Jacob would not have ignored him. And the translators of Ibn Ezra explain, had Reuben made sense, Jacob would have responded affirmatively to him, or we should render, if Reuben had spoken correctly, then Jacob would not have shushed him by saying, my son shall not go down with you.
Why would Jacob have any reason to trust Reuben after he was the eldest, and Reuben said this, that we can't do this to Joseph. I'm going to get blamed for it. I'm supposed to be in charge here. Why would he trust him after he lost Joseph with Benjamin?
Oh, Reuben spoke correctly when he said that he would be blamed for it, and obviously he is held to account. But still, the way he offers his sons and the wording there is very, what the fuck, dude?
All this talk about Reuben makes me crave pastrami.
Oh, with a good spicy mustard.
Yeah, and a nice lean piece of tomato.
Good dill pickle on the side.
I don't know if Tomer, if you ran into this in your readings, but apparently David Kimhi catches this nicely. Quote, Jacob said, stupid firstborn, are they your sons and not my sons? This is not the only moment in the story when we said that Reuben's claim to preeminence among the brothers as firstborn is dubious, and he will be displaced by Judah, the fourthborn.
Well,
yeah,
he did bang his dad's wife, so he's already in the doghouse.
There's that.
Yeah, you're right. David Kimchi does say that.
What is your dad's wife to you? That's not a stepmom? Is it a side mom?
Well, when you have multiple wives and concubines, I don't know. It's I guess stepmom is the closest thing. Oh God, it's stepmom porn.
Aunt mother.
What are you doing, step bro?
Well, the aunt mother would be like Leah and Rachel to each other, because then you've got the sister wife thing going on. But the one he slept with was one of the handmaids, so not a direct relation.
Reuben slept with Zilpah, yes.
Zilpah, yeah.
Yeah, but apparently the handmaids were the half sisters as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was one of the versions.
Isn't it? Bilhah and Zilpah were the daughters of a concubine.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was I think it was Bilhah. I'm sorry.
Either way,
I think that's the story. No, that when they were born,
that might be one of the extra canonical versions.
Yeah,
I don't know
for sure.
But yeah, either way, he's already in the doghouse a couple of times, so yeah, not surprisingly.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to say from the Midrash story is when Jacob says, you have taken my sons from me. Joseph is gone. Simeon is gone. Benjamin. He's kind of accusing them because he suspects them of Joseph. Because at this point, they hadn't told his Joseph that Jacob, that they hadn't told Jacob what had actually happened to Joseph. Joseph still thinks he was ripped apart.
He was eaten by a
even
lion.
though he had
or
hope that he was still alive.
wolves. Yeah, well, they gave
Yeah.
him the torn up cloak covered in blood, and oh, he must have been killed by a wild
Yeah,
animal.
so he refused to believe that, actually.
Yeah,
He believed that happened. Yeah, he refused to believe that, but he's also accusing them in this.
Well, and
according to the Midrash.
at the very least of negligence, which could have been what
Yeah.
led to Joseph's being, attacked by a
sure.
wild animal.
If only the forensics lab had come back and said, that's sheep's blood.
CSI, Canaan.
Sheep, goats, the same kind.
Interesting point about that, Aaron. So I've been working on this video about the murder of Herodes, and this is a case from ancient Athens, and one of the pieces of evidence that the prosecution had was the fact that there was blood found, and the thing is, the response in the defense speech, which is the only extant source we have for this entire case, was no, that wasn't human blood, that was sheep's blood.
I mean, you'd have to come up with an explanation for why there were sheep's blood splattered around, but
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes
sounds
they just
interesting, though.
explode.
You've heard of
I think-
spontaneous combustion? This is spontaneous expulsion.
Spherical sheep.
That case was bothering me for a while, and I mean, I'm going to go into a little bit more, but I had to translate a previously untranslated work, a secondary source, to actually figure out, because the thing is, okay, so the defendant's name in every study I've read about this has always been Euxithius, and I was like, the name Euxithius doesn't appear in the actual text, so how are they coming to this conclusion? How has everyone come to the conclusion that his name is Euxithius? It turns out that it's from one 4th century CE philosopher who, in a random offhanded comment in a response to Hermogenes, he uses this case as an example, and he uses the name Euxithius, and that's our only source for it. And I go into a little bit. I'm going to go into a little bit more once I actually make the video. But I had to find the source for it, and then I had to actually find the actual source so I could read it, and it was in Greek, and I was like, this is great, but it was part of a Latin publication, so all of the commentary on it is in Latin, which I can't read, but I just flipped to the Greek portion, so which, like I said, it was previously untranslated, so I just started translating what I needed, and that was weirdly enlightening.
That's awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
No.
I have a very strange concept of fun. Are we ready to move on to chapter 43, or do we have more comments on 42?
Yep.
But
Olive?
I think we're moving on.
Yep, we are.
All right, Genesis 43. Look at us steaming through here. Now the famine was still severe in the land, and when they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little more food." I think
it was Aaron.
dinosaur is acting up.
Yeah, I think so. Who? None other than Aaron.
I am not.
Oh, he has a dinosaur. What do you expect?
Yep.
But Judah said to him, "The man warned us solemnly, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother along with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, because the man said to us, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you.'"
If you see him, I was concerned because I bought that snake and then we reversed the sale.
Aaron doesn't know he's not muted.
Yep, he doesn't know.
Aaron, darling, you're not muted.
can
Lalandra,
hear
yell at him from
you.
the other room.
You were in 6, I think.
Yes, I was. Yes. And Israel asked, "Why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man you had another brother?" They replied, "The man questioned us closely about ourselves and our family. Is your father still living?" He asked us. "Do you have another brother?" We simply answered his questions. How were we to know he would say, "Bring your brother down here"? Then Judah said to Israel his father, "Send the boy along with me, and we will go at once, so that we and our children you and our children may live and not die. I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life. As it is, if we had not delayed, we could have gone and returned twice." Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them back down to the man as a gift: a little balm and a little honey, some spices and myrrh, some pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put back in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also, and go back to the man at once. And may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, so that he will let your other brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved."
So I only have a comment on verse 11 about all the several the several products that are mentioned, because why not? First, about the best product of the land. In Hebrew, it's mizimrat haaretz. The word zimra in the Bible usually refers to a melody or a song. However, in the context of choice fruits, it is a hapax legomenon. Rashi comments that it is named as such because people sing its praise, mezamrim, when it comes into existence. Klein Dictionary writes that it probably derives from zemer, which means to cut. So it literally means that which is cut off. The honey, in the Bible, honey could refer to either bee honey or date honey, as dates are one of the more common fruits in Israel.
So like a date syrup.
Yeah, in Hebrew it's called silan as well.
Yeah,
Pistachio nuts.
Milk and honey. The expression "milk and honey" is goat milk and date honey.
Yeah. Pistachio nuts. In Hebrew, it's botnim, which is a hapax legomenon. According to the BDB dictionary, it is similar to the Assyrian word butnu, which is pistachio. Rashi, however, identified them as peaches. I don't know why.
How would you have peaches?
Yeah, I should also
maybe he's going to the country.
Peaches didn't even exist at that point. I mean, they're not in ancient Rome. Peaches were these like little sour cherry things. It's taken generations to get.
I should mention that that botnim in modern Hebrew means peanuts, usually.
Ooh, peanuts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, obviously,
but there's also like there's also like the translators just sometimes a lot of times in places like this where it's like in the Bible it says like a list of names of places or a list of fruit or vegetable, whatever, that you look at translations and they could be completely different. And it's like, where does this come from? Why does this one say myrrh and this one says wax and this one says was it the other way around? Whatever, spices, and this one says wax. This one says myrrh, and this one says lotus. Like, where does this come from? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's translations, but also possibly versions of the Bible from different areas and things like that, where whatever would have made sense. Because obviously, what they're doing is offering a tribute. They're offering a tribute to Joseph, which is only more treating him like a king, which was the thing they were all upset about in the dreams anyway. So it's, there's kind of the prophecy fulfilled on multiple levels, the bowing down, but also, the bringing him gifts and tributes as you would to a ruler expensive spices and things difficult to obtain and precious in their culture and time.
Smith Black says, offers $5 and says, stole this from Discord. I want to see Aaron learn Greek to see his reaction when he learns how many verb forms there are and what a declension is.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. I am in support of that.
Okay, then Trevor and Wright says, why is it that in the Bible they are so concerned about their lineage and who they descend from, knowing that the Israelites had an incestuous genealogy?
Well, it wasn't really a problem for them, but
Yeah,
they...
I mean, I get that. I mean, I come from my family lived generations in a very, very small town, so that, ultimately, if you've been there to, if there's a small town and everybody's lived there for like 200 years, then yeah, sure, cousin mom and cousin dad, real close family.
You also want to establish your rightful claim to a place, because during the exile, when the Israelites didn't really have their own land, they wanted to remind their people, where we came from, and this is what we're fighting for, to get our land back. And then they had these lineages going back to the place that they wanted to be, to restore Israel.
We've commented on this frequently, where there are small petty interactions where they buy the rights to a well or the rights to a little plot of land.
Or they bury someone there.
Yeah, to bury someone or for some other purpose. But it's clearly establishing a legal precedent that they had place in the land, that they traded for land, that they won land, that they had rights, and then that their descendants should thence inherit said rights.
And this maybe the chapter 43 kind of establishes why the line of Judah is superior to the line of Reuben. Reuben, in some interpretations, raped his father's concubine, and also moved his couch or whatever, and then he like Judah actually, when Joseph was being abducted or whatever, he's like, well, I'll come back and get him later. So he's maybe the only blameless brother here.
It is also,
he seems to be a more sympathetic character. Yeah.
It is also established in the blessings, quote unquote, of Jacob that Judah is the superior.
Well, you can see here that Reuben is, Reuben makes the offer, I will guarantee his safety. The father doesn't say. So, but then when Judah makes the offer, he does say so. We've discussed the documentary hypothesis before. Looking at the ways that there's differences in the authorship here, I'm getting very much a feeling of like a northern Israel source and a southern Judah source, and putting them together where Reuben represents the northern kingdom of Israel and Judah represents the southern kingdom of Judah, and that they're again shuffling these together in a manner to establish the dominance of Judah and the greater trust that his father had in him, even though Reuben is the eldest and would traditionally have the rights of the eldest. Yeah, that's what I get for highlighting my text.
And at least he did something praiseworthy rather than God chose him because he was the one that would sacrifice his own kid for him, So
yeah, well, Judah's offer doesn't explicitly say you can kill my kids. Although perhaps he would offer them as substitute sons in some way. But it doesn't have that nice you can kill your grandkids as part of the deal.
Yeah, it's like I will be personally responsible.
Yes.
Rather than my kids being responsible, which is not a very
it's better, I guess.
It's an improvement. It's an improvement. Definitely an improvement. Anyway.
15.
So the men took the gifts and double the amount of silver, and Benjamin also. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take these men to my house, slaughter an animal, and prepare dinner. They are to eat with me at noon." The man did as Joseph told him, and took the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were frightened when they were taken to his house. They thought, we were brought here because of the silver that was put into our sacks the first time. He wants to attack us and overpower us and seize us as slaves and take our donkeys. So they went up to Joseph's steward and spoke to him at the entrance of the house. Please, sir, they said, we came down here the first time to buy food. But at the time, at the place where we stopped for the night, we opened our sacks and each of us found his silver, the exact weight, in the mouth of his sacks. So see, we have brought it back with us. We have also brought additional silver with us to buy food. We don't know who put the silver in our sacks. It's all right, he said. Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your silver. Then he brought Simeon out to them. The plot thickens. Yeah, I'll go a little further. The steward took the men into Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, provided fodder for the donkeys. They prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon because they had heard they were to eat there.
I
When
just have a
Joseph-
question real quick.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in here.
Please.
Does nobody have sandals or something? I mean, because there's an awful lot of foot washing in the Bible, and I'm just
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but-
have you
but-
walked in the desert in sandals? Because I have, and trust me,
Me
you need
too.
to wash your feet after.
Yep.
I mean, they had
Okay.
sandals, they didn't have boots, and honestly, you would have needed to wash your feet for a different reason if you had boots.
Yeah, it was a hospitality thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a comment from Broad Smile, $20. Thank you.
Oh.
Would love to stay longer, but I have to make ice cream with my grandson.
Ooh, have
bragger.
fun.
Make sure you don't
That's
offer
a-
your grandson to be murdered.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's. I was gonna say that's an unorthodox ingredient for ice cream.
You're terrible. Oh my God. Well, have fun with your grandson, and all the best from the Blasphemers. Mm.
Yeah, that was very blasphemous of me. Sorry.
Yes. Oh, it was very blasphemous. It was perfect.
What
Yeah,
verse are we on?
We're on
26.
26. When Joseph
Uh.
came home, they presented to him the gifts that they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. And he asked them how they were. And they said, and then he said, how is your aged father who you told me about? Is he still living? They replied, your servant our father is still alive and well. And they bowed low to pay him honor. Lots of bowing. As he looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about? And he said, God be gracious to you, my son. Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. After he had washed his face, he came out and, controlling himself, said, serve the food. They served him by himself, the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, for that is detestable to Egyptians. The men had been seated before him in the order of their ages from the firstborn to the youngest, and they looked at each other in astonishment. When the portions were served to them from Joseph's table, Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as anyone else's, so they feasted and drank freely with him.
So I want to mention about verse 18, to attack us. In Hebrew, it's lehitgolel. The root word is gimel lamed lamed, which could also mean to roll. So it could also be read as to be rolled upon us. Rashi comments that it denotes an accusation regarding the money, and Nachmanides comments that the meaning is as a man who turns from side to side upon his fellow.
So, two-faced backstabbing?
Yeah.
There you go.
And verse 32. So I don't know if Lawrence knows about this, but according to Herodotus, in History's Book 2, Chapter 41, no Egyptian man or woman will use a knife or a spit or a cauldron belonging to a Greek or taste the flesh of an unblemished bull that has been cut up with a Greek knife. Targum Onkelos explains that the Egyptians worshipped the animal that the Hebrews ate. So it was generally like they didn't like foreigners, according to Herodotus.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think I did mention that when I was talking about the origins of the Joseph story, how it maintained this era, this aura of segregation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like you could still like you could intermarry and stuff, but like you couldn't. Yeah, exactly like what Tomer just said. Like you couldn't like use the same knife and whatnot. So
I'm really sorry I missed that part of the conversation because I am very interested in what the era and origin of this story is. But
Yeah.
the Greeks at one point, like in the time of Herodotus, the Greeks had conquered Egypt, and thus the Egyptians were a bit salty about that. So I don't know, how much that would have affected their attitude towards segregation, or if that was something that sort of came up later.
So I yeah I don't remember if you were actually there for when we started the Joseph story.
I was there for the cistern bit.
Okay.
So we mentioned it a little bit, but you were going to get into it more.
Okay. Yeah. So I was mostly talking about how this was written as a diaspora novella. So it's a much later text that was it was not part of like any quote unquote original composition, right? Like, yeah, we have like, you could go with the documentary hypothesis or the supplementary one, doesn't really matter. But after all that was said and done, in around the 4th century, maybe 3rd century, the Joseph story, probably 4th century, yeah, it would have been written and placed in between Genesis and Exodus as a bridge from one story to the other. And some of the pieces of evidence that I used was, so God is far less prominent in this text.
Very true.
And that stands in line with, for example, a text like Esther, where God doesn't do anything. In fact, the word God doesn't even pop up in Esther. We're just kind of meant to.
There's some praying. That's the closest they get.
Yeah, God doesn't do anything. He doesn't talk to anybody. He's not like his own character. So it kind of stands in line. And same with Daniel. Like, it's very rare. But from reading the text, you're meant to say like, oh, okay, God had a hand in doing this. You're meant to understand that without it having to be explicitly said. And this stands in that same kind of tradition, so it likely came from around the same time period. And so I did go into that part a little bit, and one of the hints is that kind of segregation.
And and also we mentioned the narrative superiority, where there's more actual dialogue, there's more actual narrative quality, I guess you could say. It's not just the earlier part of Genesis is a bit dry in certain parts, but this is a little more dynamic.
Yeah, it's its own story, it's its own unit.
Yeah, and it reads easier, much easier.
This idea. Sorry,
go on, Isaac.
So this idea about the Egyptians worshipped the animal that the Hebrews ate, whatever, which is also brought down later on when it comes to the the Paschal lamb. Is there any evidence that Egyptians worshipped and or did not eat sheep or lamb or whatever?
Yeah, sheep I wouldn't know about.
I know they have worshipped cows.
Yeah, the Apis bull.
But I don't know if they worship sheep.
They had sacred bulls, but most of if you think about the heads of the gods, cats, but I don't think anyone ate cats.
Yeah. They probably didn't eat that anyway. Yeah, so that's like I don't know if when that comes up, what at what period do the commentators say that it was the Egyptians found it disgusting that the Jews
Targomonkelos, I think it was like 6th, 7th century. I don't know.
He brings up that they
I said
they worship the food.
Okay.
Well, more chats to read. We got Trevlin Wright says, is there an organic connection in that historical timeline and the story's biblical narrative in regard to the Joseph story and ancient Egyptian sources by the scholars, or not?
Oh yeah, this is also something I mentioned. So the one time period that this could possibly be like historically even close to feasible would be I think in the was it in the 4th century? There's something called the famine stela, and it outlines 7 years of famine. That's an Egyptian source, but it's far later than when we are meant to place this story like in the
Mhm.
biblical timeline. So yeah, that would be like the closest thing, and you see a lot of
And
the same kind of notes too. Sorry, go
yeah,
on.
can you help me, Lawrence? How do you say this name in the next chat that I'm trying to read? Is this Greek?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so
Okay, because it's all Greek to me.
Yeah, Georgis Tumpanes. Yeah.
All right, and he says Herodotus, the historian, 484 BC, born and died 425 BC, and Greeks conquered Egypt with Alexander the Great
You're
during his
right.
reign, 336 to 323 BC. Are you talking about another Herodotus?
No,
No,
I
this is the
mixed up my
Herodotus.
dates. That was my mistake. I was getting my
Uh,
historical timelines mixed up. I'm a little. Yeah.
I have a final comment on verse 33. First of all, I apologize about the Takwonkelos. It's actually the 2nd century, not the 6th or 7th. Second of all, in verse 33, Bereshit Rabbah expands on this ordering. He, i.e. Joseph, the Bereshit Rabbah in 92:5. So, quote,
Yeah,
he,
the Midrash.
i.e. Joseph, took the cup and pretended to smell it as though practicing divination. He said, Judah, who is king, sit on the head. Reuben, who is firstborn, sit second. And he said so for all. He said, I have no mother, and Benjamin has no mother, for his mother died on giving birth to him. Therefore, he must come and sit near me.
So he thinks, because I was actually about to mention from a narrative point of view, Joseph is clearly messing with them. I mean, he knows the order of the brothers' birth. That's not obvious, aside from, Benjamin being the youngest. An outsider wouldn't know that. He's deliberately showing favoritism to Benjamin. He was shown favoritism. The brothers were jealous of him and betrayed him because of it. So I think he's testing to see if they're going to behave the same way with Benjamin. But he's also messing with their heads because they notice they've been placed in order of birth, and he has no reason to know that. Now, if he pretended to divination, they would have the excuse that he had, divination, he divined special things, and how else could he know? Either way, he's messing with their heads. Which, fair enough. How long was he in prison for? Like, I'd probably mess with their heads a bit too.
It's funny
I
that
think
you have a subtlety like that, because the Bible doesn't usually deal in subtleties. I mean, it usually spells everything out explicitly.
Yeah.
Well, parts of it. Like, this is, as Lawrence said, there's a good argument to be made for later authorship here, and for something more like a novel, which has far more nuance than any of the stuff
But yeah,
we read
this
prior.
is already markedly different than most of the stories in the Bible. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So shall we continue with, what time is it even?
Chapter 44.
Chapter 44.
Yeah, in 45 minutes, I've got to be at a board meeting. So
Okay.
I hate to always have something like immediately after, but
Lucky for you, I have only half a page of commentary. So
Okay, how long is 44?
I think it's like
It's quite
30 something.
Ooh.
34.
Oh, it stops
Similar
right
length,
on a
yeah.
cliffhanger. Okay, we're gonna do that. That'll be fun.
All right.
All right, now Joseph gave these instructions to the steward of his house. Fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. Then put my cup, the silver one, in the mouth of the youngest one's sack, along with the silver for his grain. And he did as Joseph said. As the morning dawned, the men were sent on their way with their donkeys. They had not gone far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, Go after those men at once, and when you catch up with them, say to them, Why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? This is a wicked thing you have done. When he caught up with them, he repeated these words to them. But they said to him, "Why does my lord say such things? Far be it for your servants to do anything like that. We had even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouth of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become my lord's slaves." "Very well, then," he said, "let it be as you say. Whoever is found to have it will become my slave, and the rest of you will be free from blame." Each of them quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. The steward proceeded to search, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. At this they tore their clothes, and they all loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. Joseph was still in the house when Judah and his brothers came in, and they threw themselves to the ground before him. Joseph said to them, "What is this you have done? Don't you know that a man like me can find out things by divination?" "What can we say, my lord?" Judah replied. "What can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. We are now my lord's slaves, we ourselves and the one who was found to have the cup." But Joseph said, "Far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who was found to have the cup will become my slave. The rest of you go back to your father in peace." Then Judah went up to him and said, "Please, my lord, let your servant speak a word to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, though you are equal to Pharaoh himself. My lord asked his servants, 'Do you have a father or a brother?' And we answered, 'We have an aged father, and there is a young son born to him in his old age. His brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him.' Then you said to your servants, 'Bring him down to me, so that I can see him for myself.' And we said to my lord, 'The boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves him, his father will die.' But you told your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again.' When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him what my lord had said. Then our father said, 'Go back and buy a little more food,' but we said, 'We cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us will we go. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us.' Your servant, my father, said to us, 'You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, he has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in misery. So now if the boy is not with us when I go back to your servant, my father, and my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants will bring the gray head of our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant guaranteed the boy's life, the boy's safety to my father. I said, if I do not bring him back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please, let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come upon my father."
Okay, so I only have 2 comments about verse 18. You are equal to Pharaoh himself. So Rashi comments here, and this is quite a lengthy one. Quote, "In my sight, you are as important as the king." This is the literal meaning, but a midrashic explanation is, you will ultimately be stricken with leprosy for detaining Benjamin, even as your ancestor Pharaoh was stricken, because he detained my ancestress Sarah one night. Another explanation is, you are as unreliable as Pharaoh, just as Pharaoh issues decrees and does not carry them out, makes promises and does not fulfill them. So also do you. Is this what you meant by setting your eyes upon him when you said in Genesis 44:21, "Bring him down and I will set mine eyes upon him"? Still, another interpretation, "If you provoke me, I will slay you and your master."
That's some pretty salty commentary for what is otherwise quite an impassioned plea for his brother's safety and his father's sanity.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of chats. I've got 4 chats to read.
Can I please finish one comment, please?
Fine.
I promise you, it's short.
He just wants to finish, Arn. Let the man finish.
Verse
If I
22.
don't finish, I get really cranky.
Okay, verse 22. If he leaves him, his father will die. So the Hebrew Bible reads, "And he leaves his father and dies." So it's not clear who will die. While some commentators, like Rashi and Nachmanides, wrote that this refers to Benjamin, most commentators wrote that this refers to Jacob. Bachya ben Asher wrote that this refers to both of them. That's it.
I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory. My father will die of sorrow if he loses his youngest son, who he set so much stock in, after losing his brother. But I guess if we took the obvious meaning, what use would there be for commentary?
Yeah, yeah, Hebrew, confusing.
Commentators must eat.
So the chats that I need to catch up on. First from Chonkomatic. What a great name. New member, what Bible versions should I use?
Well, I personally use the JPS for my Bible, the Jewish Publication Society. But I think I've also used the NIV for the English translations for my commentary, because the majority of people here read either the KJV, the NIV, or something else. So I've chosen with the most well read, I guess.
Lawrence is probably the best one to answer that. In my understanding, the King James Version has historical
funniest.
quality as the English literature, but from a scholarly point of view, no.
Yeah, it's real bad. Because it uses very late manuscripts.
Yeah.
Primarily. Because that's all they had access to. But
we would have gotten 3 and it came to passes in this chapter, so, or the past 2 chapters. So
well, I do have an old Schofield Bible, which is King James, so I can pull that out next time.
I've noted previously. Sorry, Lawrence, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that so when it comes to translations, I don't think that you can get a proper translation without commentary, because there's no such thing as a perfect translation. So for commentary and translation, I am personally using Robert Alter's publication for the Old Testament stuff, and for the New Testament stuff, you can find critical editions in the Hermenia series. I think is really good, but that one is pretty pricey, and you'd have to get like all the books by themselves, which is even more expensive. So if you want like a New Testament that is critical but still retains the commentary, you could there's the Jewish Annotated New Testament, I think. It's from Amy Jill Levine, and that one's pretty good. We use that one on the show, and we also have a Greek version of the New Testament too, but we don't read the story from that one.
When Lawrence says we do that on the show, he's referring to his show that he does on Sundays, which I finally remembered to put a link in the description so people can find their way to your show.
Thank you. So that's what I would recommend if you're looking for 2 not super expensive translations. But yeah, Hermenia is the best commentary series, and they have good translations as well.
The next comment is from Digital Indra. Says, keep in mind, in these stories is supposed to be the divine word leading to the salvation of mankind. Somehow, you might as well read Harry Potter at this point.
I mean, there are worse written novels, like Twilight. It's really terrible.
I was thinking about this yesterday. So I was, you guys know Vsauce?
Yes.
I know,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so he has that video on the Ziff mystery, right?
Ziff Law.
Yeah. So yeah, Tomer knows. And for anyone that doesn't know, it basically describes the trend where like the first most used. So you have the first most used word in any language. The second most used word is going to be sees half the usage as the first one, and the third one sees third usage as the first one, and so on. And that trends throughout all languages and all literature. It's absolutely everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, personally, I was thinking about this, and I was like, this includes the Bible, right? And that's, to me, that shows that this is a very human book. Because we can, even if it's not written in a Zipfian manner, we can still understand something that's not written in a Ziphian way. So it's not like God needed to have this written down in a Ziphian manner. But the fact that it is written in a Ziphian manner, to me, speaks to its humanness more than any divinity.
It's the argument for divine inspiration. I mean, infallibility is completely impossible if you actually pay attention to the Bible and reality. But inspiration is such a cliched word that has no clear meaning. I mean, honestly, Ingersoll would constantly ask ministers, do you believe the Bible is inspired in any way in which Shakespeare is not inspired? Because Shakespeare is obviously a far better writer than God. So, like, why is his inspiration inferior to purely human inspiration in terms of quality? And so, but the argument for it is yeah, it's not even really an argument. It's just sort of an assertion and an emotional attachment. But it becomes very, it's the sort of thing that falls apart the closer you look at it.
I would like to disagree with Lilith here. I think that when I actually enjoy reading the Bible, I think it's personally, I think it's a literary masterpiece. Like, at least from the Hebrew side of things, I really enjoy reading it. So
I can hardly hear you guys for the purring that's going on in my ear.
Probably
oh, I'm so jealous.
Okay, so I've got another comment to read. Where did it go? Yes, Larry Fishman offers $10. Says, does anyone know who writes the scripts for those Gen Z ex-atheist Christian apologists on YouTube and TikTok? I could write better apologetics in my sleep.
Honestly, apologetics hasn't come up with anything new in about, 300-400 years? Like,
well,
they've
come up with a bunch of science denial arguments.
Well, yeah, but that's the same argument from ignorance and God of the gaps that's been going on since day one. It was, how did the magnets work? I mean, it's the same argument.
Well, there's the claim about the pre-Columbian inscriptions or whatever that we just paid somebody to make for us, and we're going to claim that they're hundreds of years old, that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, there's additional frauds. There are new frauds because they think that evolution and atheism are the same thing. But the actual apologetic arguments for the existence of God, there aren't any. I mean, even Dante's, or not Dante, cogito ergo sum.
Descartes.
Descartes, yes. Even Descartes, that's the closest thing to a new argument, and the ontological argument wasn't new, but it was maybe a bit of a new take on it.
Sorry, the ontological argument, I think it's Anselm.
Yes, it traces back to Anselm, as far as I know. Perhaps it goes further, who knows? But yeah, either way, there are no new arguments, and nor is there any actual addressing of the criticism of those arguments. It just gets watered down and repeated by someone like C.S. Lewis simplified several of the arguments, and then someone like William Lane Craig just regurgitates them in an even dumber form, and and then Frank Turek badly regurgitates him, and then some poor 17-year-old who thinks they're being intellectual because they have no life experience badly regurgitates Frank Turek, and then so it's really just a degrading half-life of very old arguments that were only partly convincing because of ignorance.
Damn it, dog, shut up.
Yeah, Gen Z like to use AI, so maybe in this case they're using artificial ignorance to generate their arguments.
Very good, very good.
Jackson Wheat and I, we did a show on a book called Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation? That's a book from 1967, and it was it's a book from the Jehovah's Witnesses. It contains literally every claim you see apologists make these days. So everything Ken Ham or Kent Hovind and the likes have to offer, and the younger ones, it's all in that book. Every single claim.
Well, and the Jehovah's Witnesses, the original book they put out, they misquoted a bunch of scientists, and it was quite a, sort of a scandal that a bunch of scientists were like, "Hey, no, you quote mined me," and then, they had to keep their flock from finding out that they had been caught lying. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
creationism for you.
Final chat comment that was shared here. Blaspheme You says, kind of new. Who's Aaron's fur buddy? At that moment, before the dogs went ape shit over an Amazon delivery, that was our cat Hecate, which we named it that not just for the god, but it's also for Hey Kitty.
That's nice.
Oh,
That's nice.
well, my own
I
black
have
cat
children.
has come to take treats.
I'm allowed to make these jokes.
I mean, the Egyptians called, the cat meow, so why not?
Okay, so Lilith,
You.
you did 30 some odd verses in just a span of a few minutes. In the next half hour, can you do 28?
I think I can.
Aaron, I have like a page and a half of commentary. Are you sure you want to?
All right, we will
Yeah,
we will
and-
save that for next time because I do have a board meeting coming up, and I can't be late for that.
Yeah, and I did have some closing notes for this chapter too.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it then on a cliffhanger. They've all been. Benjamin is there in shackles. Joseph saying he's going to make him a slave. Judah comes forward and makes an impassioned plea for the boy's freedom and offers himself as a slave. And scene. Tune in next week. Same Blasphemers time, same Blasphemers channel.
So for just the closing notes, I wanted to do some more generalized commentary here about the divination, right? So in the Bible, there are, of course, we've already seen methods of divination, and at this point in time, it doesn't seem like there's an issue with it in this story. So once we get to Leviticus, for example, like these diviners, these methods of divination, like they're spoken of polemically, and it comes up in Deuteronomy as well. And the thing is, this kind of points towards a later date. And now, of course, the one that Joseph uses is, he uses a cup. And it's interestingly in the Septuagint, it uses ornithomancy. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that one, but birds. Yeah. So
what?
Yeah, it
bones
translates it as birds. On practicing divination there in Genesis.
As in with bird bones?
No, like seeing them like
Divination?
fly up in the sky and shit like that.
Oh.
Yeah,
If you had a problem with divination, you could use the excuse, and just thinking like an apologist or a pastor here, that Joseph didn't actually practice divination, but because he knew the order and put them in the order of age, he showed that he had knowledge of them, and he excused this by pretending that he had gained it from divination to intimidate the brothers and scare them, and also because divination is something that would happen in Egypt, they would believe it, but he didn't actually do divination. This is the kind of excuse a pastor would come up with. And also
that's the midrash, that he held the goblet and then he would read off the goblet. Oh, you're the oldest.
Pretend, pretend that he was getting it via magical things. The other thing is that while divination is forbidden, yet there's also divination practices and magic practices. It's sort of a bit like Christians who decry magic as evil and then anoint the house with oil and speak what are essentially spells to keep evil out. So, it's not magic when we do it. There seems to be a little of that kind of hypocrisy in religion.
Just a little. The practice of divination with a cup, right? That is called laconomancy, I guess. So while oracles were the primary form of divination practiced in Egypt. There are indications that laconomancy was practiced there as well, but references to it are late, stemming from the Hellenistic period at the earliest. So within the Joseph story, with its time of the narration in the mid-2nd millennium BCE, a reference to laconomancy in Egypt looks somewhat anachronistic. If the practice of laconomancy in Egypt is linked to the time of the narrator, it is safest to assume that he lived no earlier than in the late 4th century BCE. So that is another
indication of 4th century authorship, and not
it's wonderful.
Very interesting.
part of the original canon.
Yes, Mr. Bond.
And before it's gone, all Lawrence's links are in the chat, including the one to the Discord server.
Okay.
Thank you
then
very much.
One
Appreciate it.
last
I'm
chat,
also there, and Isaac.
Yeah, damn straight.
One
Ivory
last comment
Darkness
apparently.
and-
Jasa says, "Tell Lilith there is one book worse than Twilight, the Book of Mormon."
And speaking of which,
And it
tomorrow
came to
for me will be
pass.
for me it'll be on Monday at night. We're going to read the Book of Mormon, aka Isaiah, because Joseph is not an original author. Yeah, it's Isaiah. It's the Isaiah chapters. So yeah,
I figured
I'm gonna
that
be
Joseph Smith decided that the best way to make it sound like the Bible was to just literally copy the Bible.
Well,
and then change certain words.
He did add in some new things, which was probably the first time proctomancy was
and omitted stuff.
You know what?
Was
I've
done.
read fan fiction, and that's just lazy.
And it
But
says
he
in the
didn't fix
Bible,
the
it says in the
mistakes.
Old Testament, thou shalt not add to or subtract from this book. But then a hell of a lot of books were taken out of it anyway. And then they added a New Testament. And in the New Testament, it also says, thou shalt not add to or subtract from this book. But then they subtracted a lot from that too. And then Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, well,
but
you could argue
God works in
person
mysterious
put enough
ways. You knew that, right?
Someone in the chat says they hesitate to bring up 50 Shades of Grey, which was a fan fiction of Twilight. So like it's kind of like a parallel, you've got
It's true,
both have been
actually.
written by
the
Mormons.
Torah, then the
Yeah.
Islam and Christianity, and then the Book of Mormon.
I will say this:
Was the
50 Shades of Grey is not well written, but it is better written than Twilight, which is not saying much. That is a very low bar. The bar is in the crust of the earth. Okay, but it's kind of interesting. It's like, Christianity is in practice mostly about sexual regulation, and it's basically a spin-off of Judaism, and then Book of Mormon comes in as its own fan fiction, and suddenly everyone can have dozens of wives, especially Joseph Smith, especially if he wants his neighbor's wife.
Yeah.
was one of those books written by a Mormon?
Yeah, the Twilight. She's a Mormon. The author.
Hey, weird.
I love Arn's quote on this, because Arn quoted this on, I think it was Book of Mormon. It's not adultery if there are not adults involved. Something like that. What was it, Arn?
Oh, God.
That was so good.
Yeah.
So the Twilight.
Right, we got another chat.
Yeah, this is a comment that I actually wanted to comment on. So yeah, the comment is the KJV is mostly trash because King James, who had a preference for poetry, asked the translators to make some things more poetic by using other words. For example, cobra meaning dragon. Now, this I did comment this in the Discord. So I was looking into this, I think because Tomer asked me actually.
But doesn't that come directly from the Septuagint?
Yeah, so
Dragon.
the word that's used is
Cockatrice.
Snake. Yeah, right. It was translated as cockatrice, right? But this was really interesting for me. It kind of got me down this small rabbit hole. So yeah, the word in the Septuagint that's translated as cockatrice, I guess, it's still snake or serpent. But the interesting thing is, when I was looking into the word there, there was actually this serpent-like bracelet that used to be popular, and that serpent-like bracelet was called Drakon.
Dakong?
And I asked you when it was popular.
Yeah, that's something I haven't exactly found. But
That still makes sense because, as far as I can tell from what I looked into it a little bit, dragons, the word dragon, and the idea of what a dragon is, pre-Christian or medieval times, was a serpent, a fiery serpent.
right, yeah. So you'd have these pieces, either like I saw somewhere that it could have been a ring as well, but it was kind of, it had the form of a snake. So, but those
Was
were
it like an
called
Ouroboros eating its tail kind of a thing?
I guess maybe kind of would have been, just would have been snake-like. So it was just very interesting for me to see that. Now I'm not entirely sure about the actual like textual link there, but it was very interesting to see that it was called Drakon.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody. I'm going to have to bail out so we can so I can get to a board meeting. Thank you guys for being so efficient. I got another chat I got to read. Hold on a second. White
no.
Salamander, $10. Thank you. Says that the Book of Mormon series RN created is called Joseph Smith. This series would be better called The Holy Babel, since Southerners tend to pronounce Bible this way, and babble means talking nonsensically. A fair point.
Okay, we can always I just want to call it, Matt White tagged me in a comment. Torah, Bible, and Quran are the prequel, original, and sequel trilogies. BOM, the Book of Mormon, is the holiday special. And now Ewoks are singing Christmas carols in my head.
All right, everybody, say your final commentary.
Goodbye. Thank you very much for watching.
Go
Good
watch
to see you all
Milwaukee Atheist
again.
and subscribe. Thank you.
Yes.